This is TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And the State of the Saints podcast is brought to you by Manscaped.com. For those that enjoyed the Lawnmower 3.0, well, I got news for you. The Manscaped engineering team has successfully created the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the Lawnmower 4.0. The leader in male grooming is taking it to the next level. Join the 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped for all their below-the-waist needs. Go to manscaped.com. Use the promo code State of Saints, and you will save 20% off on the Lawnmower 4.0 as well as other Manscaped items. That's manscaped.com. Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. Thank you so much for checking out the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. And as I take these glasses off, I want to say thank you to all those that check out the State of the Saints podcast consistently. Shouts out to everybody that allows the State of the Saints podcast to be a part of your listening pleasure. I'm actually recording this right now. If you're watching this as I post this live, I'm on the road right now. I'm headed to Atlanta to go to the Saints versus Falcons game. I'm excited about it. I know you are. Number one is because football is back. Football is back in the building, baby. And I am excited about it. No more preseason. No more asking and wishing. No, oh, my team, I think they're going to do this. I think they're going to do that. It is put up or shut up time, and the NFL season is back. We've seen it with the Buffalo Bills taking on the Rams, the Buffalo Bills imposing their will on the Rams, which I know a lot of us loved. But what we love most is the New Orleans Saints. If you're watching the State of the Saints podcast and you've been following this show, this is the show that we focus on the Saints. And the Saints have a big matchup, week one, versus their bitter rival, the Atlanta Falcons. Now, you know Who Dat Nation? I think about the New Orleans Saints, and I think about all of the things that people have been saying about the New Orleans Saints that are from the outside looking in. By that, I mean those individuals that have been using ESPN, Fox Sports 1, sport outlets to try to validate their feelings about the New Orleans Saints and where the New Orleans Saints are going to go because they no longer have Sean Payton. And I get it. Sean Payton is the greatest head coach in New Orleans Saints history. I get it. Sean Payton is a very great play caller, and the ability to be able to put those matchups together that the Saints can exploit are great, right? But they didn't stop making good coaches. They didn't stop making good players. They didn't stop making good coordinators just because Sean Payton decided to step down and decided to go on to different things. The New Orleans Saints now have Coach Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen, be that as it may, was not successful with his first stint as a head coach. I think we understand that. But it's just amazing to me how Dennis Allen is supposed to not be able to weather the storm, but Ty Bowles is supposed to, and Ty Bowles didn't have a really good going when it came to the Jets. Or Josh McDaniels, like he's supposed to be able to figure it out now that he's the head coach of the Vegas Raiders. But now Dennis Allen is one of the most hopeless coaches because he had an 8-28 record. I can go on and on about coaches who start off not being very good at head coaching, and then they turn it all around and they have a respectable career. And I expect for Dennis Allen to start right here in week one versus the Atlanta Falcons and then be able to put his stamp on his New Orleans Saints team. Look, the Atlanta Falcons, I'm not going to disrespect them too much. I think that they have done a really good job trying to move life past Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, some of the mainstays that been there, Deion Jones, on the defensive side of football. It seems to me that Arthur Smith is trying to accumulate his type of players just like Dennis Allen. And then you have defensive coordinator Dean Pease, who has been behind the mic. He's a very passionate guy. I mean, I don't understand why anybody wouldn't want to play for him. He speaks very honestly about the Falcons defense and where he wants it to go. It seems like they did like an overhaul of their defense. They brung some guys in, a few guys that are familiar with Arthur Smith, familiar with Dean Peeves, and also in the secondary you have a guy like AJ Terrell, one of the guys that I feel like is really underrated as a cornerback. So I understand they got all these pieces going, right? It's great. But it's really not going to matter. It's not going to matter. Look, I don't mean any disrespect by talking about the Atlanta Falcons as if they just an afterthought. I don't have to. I mean, the world is doing it. The world is actually doing it because nobody fears the Atlanta Falcons. I was on the Atlanta Falcons podcast, and I'm pretty sure all of the guys feel that the Atlanta Falcons are going to turn the corner and they're going to be really good and all that kind of stuff. I expect them to. But there's a little thing that we live in called reality. And reality is the New Orleans Saints are better than the Atlanta Falcons. And I know Atlanta Falcons fans don't want to accept that because the Saints are their rivals, but the Saints are better. The Saints are better organizationally structured than them. They have better offensive innovation than them. They got a better defense than them. They got better special teams players than them. They're just better. And the New Orleans Saints should go out here and slap around the Atlanta Falcons because they are better. I think that a lot of people are putting stock in the fact of Sean Payton not being here, and they're not looking at the fact that the Saints have a very talented football team, and they have put Jameis Winston in a position where he can not only go out here and thrive, but he doesn't have to put everything on his back. People are quick to talk about the 30 for 30 and the turnovers, but they never take into the account the lack of attention to the offensive line of Tampa, the lack of attention to the running game. Everybody just fell in love with the deep ball of Jameis Winston and, his arm strength and his ability, and then nobody wanted to put anything around him. The New Orleans Saints have put weapons around him, not just at the wide receiver position, but also at the running back position as well. You have Alvin Kamara, who has been playing absolutely out of his mind throughout training camp. They're saying that he's in the best shape of his life. He's running the ball better. You have Mark Ingram coming back. He'll be able to contribute to the New Orleans Saints running game. The Saints have their offensive line back. They have guys who have been together for about 3 years plus. So these guys understand the assignment, and the Saints should win this football game. And the Saints will win this football game. This is the type of game, if you're going to call yourself an elite team, if you're going to call yourself a playoff contender, if you're going to call yourself one of the best teams in the NFC, you have got to beat teams that are still trying to figure it out. Now, I don't expect for this game to be a blowout, right? Because it's a divisional game. It's a divisional game, and you also have to take into account that the Saints are looking at a new Atlanta Falcons team led by Marcus Mariota and his ability to move around in the pocket. But I'm not afraid as a fan of Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota isn't a very good quarterback. Decent, but he's not very good. And I find it hilarious that Atlanta Falcon fans are looking at Jameis Winston as if Jameis Winston is hopeless, and they're hopeful of Marcus Mariota, a guy who consistently stays hurt, a guy who statistically has one of the worst completion percentages in the NFL among starting quarterbacks. And then you expect for me to believe that this guy is just going to turn the corner. He's going to channel his inner Drew Brees, and he's going to lead the Atlanta Falcons to prominence. Look, the Atlanta Falcons, if they do anything this season, they need to thank the schedule makers, because when you're second to last in the division, you get a second to last place schedule. So you're playing the bottom of the barrel when it comes to other divisions. So if they end up like winning more games. Instead of 7 games, they win 8, right? If they do that, right, it's a better season. But the New Orleans Saints, they got bigger fish to fry. I'm real big on the Atlanta Falcons Saints rivalry. Don't get me wrong, but I think the Atlanta Falcons fans, they look at this as a Super Bowl. They look at this as their Super Bowl. To me, it's not a Super Bowl. I want the Saints to beat the Falcons, but it's become so normal. It's become so part of the norm, the Saints beating the Falcons, that I don't even think about it, right? They're holding on with everything that they have to this overall record, which I feel like is like 1 game now. They've been holding on to this record. And it's funny because at the beginning, when they had Coach Mike Smith, it was like, oh, we 8 games back. And then the Saints start winning. Oh, y'all still 7 games back. And then all of a sudden the Saints start winning again. Oh, y'all 5 games back, 4 games back, 3 games back, 2 games back. We got to, it became absolutely pathetic because you realize that that's the only thing that they got to hold on to. It's not respect among the National Football League. It is not a bunch of playoff wins. It's not a Super Bowl, right? The most embarrassing Super Bowl took place. The Atlanta Falcons giving up a 25-point lead. So this is basically all they have. When we talk about the Saints, we're not even talking about the Falcons. When we talk about the Saints, we talking about the Saints making it to the playoffs, possibly making a Super Bowl. The Atlanta Falcons are on here talking about, Atlanta Falcons fans rather, are on here talking about beating the Saints, and that is like their primary focus. Like, I want to beat the Falcons, but I'd rather the Saints make the playoffs. I'd rather the Saints win a Super Bowl, right? But back to the game. I think the New Orleans Saints keys to victory. These are the keys, okay? Don't ask Jameis Winston to do too much, right? You're playing an away game. The number one priority for a team that's playing on the road is to take the crowd out of the game. Now, this can be a little bit different because we know you have a lot of casual Atlanta Falcon fans and you got to kind of prove things to them, right? So I feel like the New Orleans Saints may have an advantage when it comes to crowd participation. I'm sorry. The Atlanta Falcons fans, you have some diehards, but for the most part, they're casual. And unless the Falcons are on like a 5-game winning streak or they got more wins than losses around week 10, that's when you start seeing those brand new jerseys coming out that's bright red that you got to put sunglasses on because the red is blinding you so much because it has yet to go through a rinse cycle, right? So I feel like the New Orleans Saints have to be able to, in most cases, they got to be able to take the crowd out of the game, and you do that by running the football. I think that drive that they had versus the Chargers, and I'm not going to put too much stock into it, but I think that drive was a great combination of the run and the pass. And if you can do that, then you can keep the defense of the Atlanta Falcons on their heels. The Saints offensive line is one of the best. It'll be interesting to see if the Atlanta Falcons have right the wrongs of last year where they couldn't get pressure on the quarterback. Will they be able to get pressure on Jameis Winston? I'm hearing, they talking about getting pressure like it's just the easiest thing in the world. The Saints have a really good offensive line, and I expect with Pete Carmichael calling plays to have a good balance of the run and the pass. Okay, also, I expect for the Saints to be able to sustain long drives. You got to be able to have a high percentage on third down. You got to be able to move those chains. And you have 2 guys that are going to be playing in this game that are capable of it. I hear people talking about, Michael Thomas. Oh, he running slants, 5-yard slants and all this kind of stuff there. But what they're not taking into account is the reason why Michael Thomas was running so many slants was because Drew Brees' arm strength was diminishing at the time. So you had Michael Thomas that was like a good scheme fit for what Drew Brees was able to do at the time. What people aren't looking at was when Michael Thomas first got into the league, he wasn't just out here just running slants and out routes. I mean, he was out there like, trying to stretch the field. And I think that if you're thinking that Michael Thomas is just going to be out there and you're going to just have to jam him at the line of scrimmage and you just going to have to, just knock him off the slant route, I think you're sadly mistaken. I think you're going to see more explosive plays from Michael Thomas this season because of Jameis Winston's ability to get the ball down the field. And I think that people aren't going to be able to deny that Michael Thomas is still one, if not the best wide receiver in all of football. I don't think that you're going to be able to deny that. And As far as Jarvis Landry, I expect for him to be locked up on Casey Hayward. I expect Jarvis Landry to be able to move the chains. I look at him as a guy that can run crisp routes, that can, get open and be able to stretch those, drives and make them longer. So you have to be able to, sustain drives and have a high percentage on third down. I also expect for the New Orleans Saints to use Jameis Winston, not as much as, 25, 30 times a game at this particular point. I expect for him probably to throw the ball under 25 times unless the Saints are trying to find themselves trying to get back into the game because, they have a bunch of turnovers. Ball security is key. I think a lot of the losses that the Saints have is because, they're turning over the football, putting the team in a position to be able to score or kick a field goal. So as long as they can have ball security and they have a high percentage on third down and they have a good balance, they should be able to win. Defensively, I expect for them to be able to get pressure on Marcus Mariota. I think that people are looking at the RPO game and the fact that Dennis Allen, when it comes to him playing quarterbacks that will be able to move around in the pocket, it's one of those things where, people are like, well, is a quarterback that can run. He has no chance. I think that Jalen Hurts has hurt the Saints, no pun intended, in the past is because of his ability. He's almost like a running back outside the pocket, and he's extremely strong. I don't know how many times people have seen like this dude squatting 500 pounds and stuff like that. I mean, the guy's a freak of nature playing a quarterback position. But what the Saints need to do, just like they did with Jalen Hurts, they need to make Jalen Hurts, or, just like Jalen Hurts, they need to make Marcus Mariota beat them from the pocket. All right. If you can keep him inside the pocket, make sure he's not running from left to right and escaping, and then I think that you'll be able to win this game. The secondary, there's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of unanswered questions. You got to be real. How are these new safeties going to be able to act together? How is Marcus May and how is Tyrann Mathieu going to be able to adapt to what the Saints are doing? I mean, you have Lattimore out there. You got P.J. Williams out there. You got Bradley Roby, guys that are familiar with what the Saints are actually trying to do. You have Alontae Taylor, who's a rookie who has not played in preseason. I don't know what he's going to be able to bring to the game. I don't know if he's going to be, a really good corner coming out, or he's going to go through some growing pains. But I expect for the Atlanta Falcons to try to key in on a guy like Alontae Taylor, and he has to be ready because I'm pretty sure at times he's going to be lining up against a guy like Kyle Pitts. And Kyle Pitts is a matchup nightmare. He's a guy that can run routes like a wide receiver, even though he is a tight end. And also you have Cordell Patterson, a guy on the depth chart, he's listed as a running back, but we know that he can line up on the outside. And throughout his career, he has been a New Orleans Saints killer. Rather it was in Minnesota, rather it was in Chicago, and rather it was in Atlanta in the first time around where, he pretty much single-handedly took down the New Orleans Saints, including a 60-yard pass from Matt Ryan to him to set up a Younghoe Koo field goal to give the Atlanta Falcons their first Super Bowl in franchise history, right? But anyway, you got to be prepared for Cordell Patterson. Special teams, I expect for the Saints to, be able to flip the field. I know we didn't see much of Deontay Hardy, but I think that had a lot to do with the fact that the Saints knew what they had as far as a guy that's going to be able to be electric. And I like the fact that, the Saints have these wide receivers that are out here, the 1, 2, and 3, respectively, Olave, Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry. Now you have a guy like Deontay Hardy that can focus on the thing that made him special, the thing that made him make the team, and the thing that he was an all-pro at, and that's a kick return. Now I expect for him to be a part of the Saints offensive scheme, and they'll be able to scheme some things up and make things interesting. I expect for them to do that, but I expect for him to be more electrifying on special teams because that's his primary focus now. He doesn't have to focus on being a number 2 or at times the number 1 receiver. He can focus on being special at special teams. I expect for him to be able to flip the field a little bit. I want him to be able to test the special teams of the Atlanta Falcons, which I feel like they're susceptible of, him, running back a kick or, what I'm saying, or allowing him to do so. So I expect for him to be able to flip the field. I mean, how many times did Deontay Hardy put the Saints in a really good position returning punch throughout his career? I can think of a few games where, the game versus Tampa, he ran back a kick for a touchdown. I mean, it got called back because of Carl Granderson. And also, they kept on kicking on the ball and he kept on flipping the field. So he's a special guy when he has that ball in his hands, when he's trying to do some returns. As far as the kicking, I'm so glad that Will Lutz is back. I mean, I know we don't pay that much attention to kickers, but I mean, he was greatly missed last season. I mean, 4 different kickers the Saints brought in. They just couldn't get it together. It goes to show you, like, if you have a guy that's special, and the Falcons, they have Young Wei Koo, and the Saints have Will Lutz. You have guys that you can count on to be able to win you a game, going out there, kicking a field goal to put your team on top. So as far as what the score is going to be, I'm going to say that the New Orleans Saints are going to knock off the Atlanta Falcons by a score of 31-17. I think that it's going to be close in the beginning, but I think that the Saints are going to kind of pull away, probably because of maybe a turnover or maybe the Saints stopping them on a 4th down situation. It's going to be one of those things. I just think that the Saints, if they're going to be everything that they want to be, if they're going to make a statement, they got to be able to do it right off the bat. All right. Dennis Allen has a lot to prove. He has big shoes to fill. Pete Carmichael, as a play caller, has some big shoes to fill as far as what Sean Payton has left behind. And then you also got guys like Chris Richard and Ryan Nielsen, co-defensive coordinators. They got something to prove as well. But I think that the Saints should be able to do enough to knock off those Dirty Birds in Atlanta. But I would love to hear from you. What do you think about the Saints versus Falcons matchup? What do you think the prediction score will be? How do you think the Saints are going to fare out versus their bitter rivals? Do you think the Atlanta Falcons are going to win? I mean, who knows, right? Comment down below, like and share this video. This has been the State of the Saints podcast. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com, search the State of the Saints podcast. Take a moment right now, hit that like button, okay? Hit the like button if you enjoy all the State of the Saints podcast and all their content. And I have to mention that the State of the Saints podcast is brought to you by manscaped.com. So it says football is back, and we're back to seeing Mahomes slinging beautiful balls all over the field. And your friends at Manscaped are here to help you sling your beautiful balls all season long. With Manscaped state-of-the-art tech, we're here, your weapon looking more loaded than the AFC West. Football may be rough, but your ball care doesn't have to be. With Manscaped, join the 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com, using the promo code State of Saints, and you will save 20% off of your purchase. Till next time, all I got to say is, who dat?